Greetings, fellow readers. This is Rambling Collector, back here with another book review for all of you today. And I know, I have been pumping out book reviews all week, but this one in particular is not going to be a pleasant review. And as you could tell by the face palms here, this is not going to be a very fun review, nor is it going to be a very positive one. So, to give some context here, the book I'm reviewing here today, Reverie by Zee Lacson, was given to me as a challenge by a friend of mine who is also an author. Now, they had some words about this book, and I wanted to give it a chance to see what all of the fuss was about, why this book itself was so popular, and also just what it was about. Needless to say, though, after finishing it in at least 2 days, I can safely tell you that all I felt was immense disappointment. And I'm about to explain to you as to why. So to begin though, Reverie has a very interesting concept, centered around its main character, London. That being, London seemingly has a connection in her dreams to a boy named Ethan. She doesn't know if he's real or if he's just an illusion created by her mind, but she rapidly falls in love with him. Now, the thing is, her first encounter with Ethan involves her having a seizure from heat stroke. Like, as soon as she moves to California, she immediately is suffering from migraines and then starts to seize in the kitchen. That is how she first meets Ethan in her dreams. And like I said, that is an interesting concept, meeting the love of your life in your dreams, somehow. But yet the execution was so incredibly poor. One of the more minor things that I saw in there was that there were multiple spelling and punctuation errors, such as words that did not need to be capitalized, very short, choppy sentences, a rapid pace that, in my personal opinion, barely even gave me a chance to breathe as I was reading this book. Now, don't get me wrong, I love a good fast-paced read. However, there has to be moments in the story that allow you to take a moment to breathe for a moment and get to know these characters more, to connect with them. Zee Lacson, on the other hand, just goes full speed ahead, straight for the iceberg. And I won't lie to you guys, I am trying to conduct this review, as of right now, after just finishing the book today, to make sure that I don't forget anything, make sure that it's still fresh. Now, another major problem with this book, like I said before, rapid pace, which really hurts the story. More than that, there's no expanding upon these characters. The most time that we spend with London and Ethan is in London's dreams of him, of them connecting via her dreams. We never really see any expansions upon London's time in high school, except for a few things such as her making a new friend, as well as going to an Oktoberfest. But that's it, including one time a girl makes fun of her and sends her running off in tears. But that's about it. We never really see much of London's high school life, how she's adapting to being the new kid in town, to being in a new place, a new start, how she goes through her daily life at school. We get basic hints here and there that she's just going through the motions at that point. But more than that, I was actually wanting to learn more about Ethan's past, because when London first meets him, he is a rough guy out on the fringes of town, just staying away from people, and utterly devoted to resisting authority. Running around with long hair, jacket, knife, juggling everything, and even a lighter and all that stuff. To put it simply, Ethan was a bit of a punk. But over the course of the story, Ethan himself changes from a former punk and drug user to a full-on military man with honors in his career. However, another major problem with this book is that besides this, it takes till the very end for London and Ethan to finally meet in person. because there were so many questions lingering by the end of this. Not only that, but London's abilities do not get explained until the very last chapter of the book. They wait until the tail end of the story to finally have the main couple unite in person, to finally confirm to London that Ethan himself is very real, whilst also showing the source of London's powers. But it never really fully dives into it. We never get London questioning, okay, somehow I'm seeing this boy in my dreams. How exactly am I doing it? Who do I talk to about it? She never explores this. She just dives full on into her obsession with Ethan. And I'm going to say this right now. The relationship between London and Ethan was incredibly unhealthy. Okay, as I was reading this, I noticed that London's point of view started changing to where she was just rapidly obsessed with Ethan. Like, she was his, like, he was her night and day. Same with him. In fact, Ethan pretty much tells London that she was the main reason for him to finally get his act together and consent to going into the military. Whereas before, he was more about, I do not respect authority. It has never respected me, therefore I do not respect it. And judging by the scars that were shown on his back, it's not without a good reason. But it is never expanded upon, like, what exactly happened to him. We get a bare reference saying that he grew up through multiple foster homes. Some of them were probably not the greatest, but we never get a full extension on that. At least as far as I'm aware. But, once again, I'm going back to London's obsession here. Like, it's not a healthy thing when you are actually considering making yourself sick by swallowing a whole bunch of pills just to see the guy that you supposedly love. That is not healthy. That is incredibly toxic behavior. And even then, it is defined in the book how her rock, her solidarity, switches from her family practically overnight to Ethan. Hell, when Ethan, minor spoiler, was believed to have died some point near the tail end of the book, London falls into a steep depression and just moves around like a zombie, which I get it. Love can make you feel like that. But at the same time, this was not love. This was more of an obsession. You can disguise it with all the flowery language you want. That was more of an obsession, an unhealthy one at that, if you were trying to make yourself sick with pills. And once again, the spelling and grammar was a major issue for me. As I was reading, I would notice a lot of times where sentences would be cut into like 2-3 words when some of them could be mixed up with a comma, or at the very least extended since they were part of the same thought. In my opinion, this book really needs to go back to the editors to do a bit of a cleanup, at least in my personal opinion. But with that being said, let's move on to random thoughts. So, my random thoughts here. I will admit, this is probably one of the fastest times I've ever spent reading a book. I spent all of yesterday and a better chunk of today trying to at least finish this story. Mostly because, for one, the fast writing pace absolutely had me speed reading through this sucker. But more than that, I was hoping, praying even, that somehow this would improve, but no. It just kept getting worse. More than that, though, this story honestly felt overly cheesy, if I'm being honest, and not with some great messages either. The fact that this is being presented to teenagers as a possibility of a relationship is no. I feel like this is a very unhealthy way of tackling long-distance relationships, at least in my perspective. Because, yes, long-distance relationships are hard, but it does not mean you should make your significant other your whole world or reason for living. But more than that, again, the writing, so fast-paced. And I've heard that there's even a sequel to this book and a third one on the way. Will I check them out? I don't know. Maybe if I'm asked to give it another chance, but again, right now, I am just not in the best headspace with this one. There's a lot of issues, first of all. For me, I'm a guy who prefers a good adult romance, for the main reason being that it's easier to relate to adults who have a more clear-cut goal in mind as well as their own typical baggage, rather than just teenagers kind of floating through their first crushes, first loves, like practically the love at first sight trope. I am not a fan of. I'm not a fan of it, nor the rapid ascension of a relationship. Relationships take time that Reverie did not take into account. It felt like with each chapter it was moving so rapidly from just, this person seems interesting, I'm going to get to know them and become friends with them, all the way to full-blown love of, like, I cannot live without this person in my life kind of love. That's not love. Again, that is an obsession. And this is not teaching some very good messages either, with just, if you want to be able to meet the person that you like, go ahead, make yourself sick. Put your own health at risk in order to do so. No, that is not a good message to send to anybody, especially not good romantic advice. Again, a lot of the romance books I have read have had these relationships, not the unhealthy ones, but more of a partners communicating kind of way. Each character has their own flaws, and yet they work it out like adults. And it doesn't go into this borderline obsession rate that is shown here. And I'm sorry, London is not that fascinating of a character. While it does state that her mom dies when she was very young, all in all, yes, she is creative, but again, that's all there is to her character. She's not that interesting of a character. Ethan was a bit more interesting, but after his enrollment into the military, it just becomes all about London, which, again, I get it. All-encompassing love. That's very sweet. But it is not realistic. And, in all honesty, I don't know if I'd want to read more of this story. This just left me with a bad taste in my mouth. A very sour and very ashy kind of taste, just wondering, that's it? I've read through this whole thing and I just feel unaccomplished. And I gotta tell you guys, all of these negative points I listed before, as well as the ones I'm talking about now, that really hurt the score for this book. And keep in mind, this is from an indie author. And you guys know I'm a huge supporter of indie authors, but once again, the score really took a hit in this one. Speaking of which, let's move on to that. So all in all, I have to give Reverie by Zee Lacson a 3 out of 10. Which at the most would probably be like, say, 2 stars on Amazon. Because like I said, the concept of this book was interesting. But the execution was very, very poor. All those negative little bits just stacked up and really hurt the score for this book. And I myself wanted to give it a fair chance. But with all those negative traits piling up, I could not ignore them. Not one bit. So guys, do I recommend reading Reverie? No, I do not. But once again, you guys, thank you so much for listening to this crazy man's ramblings. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you will take my words into account on this one, at the very least. But if you are interested to check out other indie authors that I've talked about, I'll leave a link to the playlist right here on the right. But if you're interested to check out some of the other books that I've talked about, not just indie authors, but regular published authors, feel free to click the link to that playlist as well if you're interested. And once again, you guys, I can't thank you enough for listening to this crazy man's ramblings. It really means a lot to me that you took the time out of your day to listen to my words, as well as my thoughts on this one single book. This is Rambling Collector signing off for now, and keep reading, my fellow readers. Have a great day.